that bridge when we get there. But overall, I always want to see how can we allow for kids to participate in as many things as possible. With the larger participation, uh, one of the things that happens is we have a more competitive environment. Uh, I want you to take a notice of the photo on the bottom right. That was taken last week. Our boys golf team, they've already captured the Tri Peaks League Championship. One of the reasons why I think we're having that, uh, one, we have a great coaching staff that builds great relationships with the kids. They're invested in them. They're doing a great job with running their programs. But we also have a larger number of participants. This year we had 17. Oh, I'm sorry, it's right here in front of me. I apologize. I don't have it on here. We had 17 participants in boys golf. Well, a full golf team is technically four. So what that allows is for more competition within practice to establish who are your varsity athletes. And we also have a great developmental program with our JV as well. So the large numbers allows for a more competitive environment, which allows for more success with our overall teams, teams and activities. One of the things I would like for you to notice too is cross country. We believe that this is the largest participation number for cross country in the Salida High School history. And then if you notice down in middle school cross country, we have a large number there. This, thank you. Awesome. And so that being said, this is definitely one of those programs that I anticipate where it's going to grow even more. Just FYI for future sake, we're probably going to be requesting more positions for cross country as well as a few other sports in the future. Another thing that we're looking at, so for instance, volleyball is a sport that we're it's a unique deal. One, it's great. We have a lot of girls participating, but this sport specifically has some limiting factors that causes causes a little difficulty. But we're making it through those elements. One, volleyball is the one sport where you have once an individual is subbed for another individual, those are the only two that can sub in each match. Also, each match there's a certain number of subs that can happen. Unlike basketball, where every single time there's a stoppage, we could always just keep rotating kids through to get them participation in that activity. Volleyball, it's a little bit different. So we're like that one. What we're trying to do is just create extra games and opportunities to for those C team and D team players. Um, One of the things that we're like doing, I'm working with Dr. Blackmore and Mr. Hall on just policies about like what's a great ratio for student athletes to coaches. We're going to be looking at that in the future and just trying to decide like when do we start adding one uh, more coaches or more advisors to the different activities, and then two, we also just need to establish policies in terms of when do we start adding another activity. Right now, fall is one of those seasons where there's limiting factors or limited opportunities for kids to participate. And so we really need to start looking at some another option in terms of creating opportunities for our kids to participate. With a larger participation, there's extra costs. You know, extra games, extra contests. Well, that's extra officials. That's extra transportation. There's extra costs with that. Uniforms, equipment. We've this so far this year, I had to purchase like extra uniforms to supplement the extra bodies for different sports. And right now, I'm doing some creative things to just make sure that we do not get into the red with the activities account. But at the same time, I will be partnering with Aaron Dobson trying to get an amended budget if necessary for this school year. Staffing. So, when I first started here in Salida, one of the things Dr. Blackburn charged me with was get kids out, get them participating, and take care of the kids and love on them. So, honestly, with all my heart, I can tell you, check, I've done those. Now, what we're doing is we're reviewing like how do we get ourselves to a level of excellence. Well, right here on this slide, you're seeing like hiring procedures that we do for coaching. We post positions. I put together a hiring committee. What I normally like to do is I want to hire, partly in terms of the hiring committee, obviously myself, but I also want to get, like, for instance, if I'm hiring a girls basketball coach, I want to get the boys basketball coach to be part of this hiring committee. I also want to get like a off-season coach for that same gender. So in this case, I would either like look at like girls volleyball coach to be part of this, or girls soccer, someone like that that also has will have to work with that basketball coach in terms of off-season training and things like that. So I want to have a lot of voices in the room that are invested. And then in some cases we'll bring in a and then other invested individuals and programs. And in terms of assistant coaches, obviously we'll post the position like we do everything else. But the reality is I allow for my head coaches to hire their assistants. Um, and I will say, one, we're reviewing if this is the best process or procedure, but I will say staffing is always going to be a difficult thing for us with the unique situation of we're relying on a lot of out of building coaches uh, to help fill our roles. So you have a lot of people that might have a lot of experience in our community, but they don't have the time because of their they have to make a living with their actual jobs. We're just a supplemental to them. So there's a lot of people in the community that have qualifications, but they don't have the time to invest in it. So we're always going to be in that situation where uh, when a position is open, we're not always going to have a ton of applicants. An example of this was like, for instance, swimming. This year, I hired exactly who I wanted for our swim coach, but I had to, let me say, do some recruiting to get them to apply for the position, and they accepted. Uh, but once again, this is stuff that we want to review and like, what's a better way, what to do this. Um, One of the great things is I'm networked really well with a lot of other ads, and so uh, I meet with them on a regular basis. Those are opportunities for me to touch base with other schools and how are they handling those situations. So once again, just want to remind you, we're reviewing policies and procedures of how we're doing things. Um, right now, like for instance, our planning. Every week I meet with various people. The meetings, I always like to start with celebrations. Um, in our roles, we always hear negative things, and so I always like to start with celebrations, just so like it sets a great tone and a great mood for the meeting. I like to hear, for instance, hearing that we have more kids in middle school cross country. That's I love hearing that. Hearing kids this past weekend in cross country, in the high school cross country, we had 22 PRs. That's great. Uh, I'm just really proud of like hearing those accomplishments, and then it also just connects me to make sure I know what the great things that they're doing. And then the other thing that I move into is like, what are concerns? What's happening that we just need to be aware of? What are those things that we could do to prevent this from happening in the future, or at least uh, controlling or changing what's going on right now. So we have celebrations, we have concerns. Then we talk about scheduling. Uh, One of the things we discovered this week is there's a, a team, they had the wrong trip request put in, and so we got that corrected. Corrected before it became an issue. And then we'll also just talk about other needs, what kind of equipment is needed, what kind of coverage is needed, and then just anything else that whoever I'm meeting with would feels is necessary, or I feel that's necessary. Um, and so once we're is this like the best format? We're reviewing that. Weekly meetings is always going to be a thing. The question is this the best format that we're using? Uh, Evaluation. This year, I'm trying a new evaluation tool. It's called three-dimensional coaching. Three-dimensional coaching, the old school way is, you know, you work a kid out. You train them, whether it's singing, whether it's sports. You have to train them. We as coaches are very good at that first dimension. Now, the second dimension. What's the kid's motivation? Some of the things with three-dimensional coaching that they cover is uh, one, motivation. You know, there's some kids that are motivated with, hey, I want to become a professional athlete. Two, confidence. How do we build their confidence? Three, emotions. Uh, you know, last week in one of our activities, I saw one of our kids kind of lose control of his emotions, and so I want us to do a better job at like helping our kids handle high stress moments, because if they can learn how to deal with high stress moments in sports, it makes it easier for them to be able to deal with that type of stuff in the boardroom, in different business meetings, and et cetera, et cetera. And then the third dimension is the heart. Um, like, what's the kid's purpose for being part of your activity? What do they value? What kind of character are they? Are they feeling significant? So we're going to use that this year in terms of for evaluation, and then we'll I'll throughout the year just kind of review, is this the best best way to review, just to evaluate coaches. In the past, I've used a technique where I sent a questionnaire to each one, and essentially they did their like a self review, and we just walked through different scenarios. And so there's a lot of different tools out there that are used for evaluation, and this is another one that I want to try, and I believe that uh, it will benefit Salida. Oh, and then finally on the side, for development. Last year, Scott McFarland, he had the chance to go on sabbatical to Europe, and he went through some different trainings over there. He's actually going to do quarterly uh, professional development for our coaching staff. Uh, Topics that he'll cover: communication, culture, and community. I really want to emphasize the community aspect of it too. As you saw in the first slide, we have a lot of participants. A lot of participants need extra supervision. And so like that community aspect of it, that's where you help build volunteers. The more volunteers we have, the better supervision that's allowed. That we are able to provide for our activities. Cross country. I always tell Kenny, like, cross country is my diamond in terms of all the activities. He does a great job at getting a lot of volunteers. They break up into so many different groups where each kid is getting trained at whatever level they are. One of the things that I love with them is uh, whatever a kid's best ability is, they pull that out of it. Some kids, their best might be a 22-minute 5K. Uh, while state rankings on the boys' side, that's not that great of a time. But cross country has done a great job at pulling that type of performance out of that kid. So anyway, just we want to create more community that creates more volunteers, that creates more supervision, and it also creates opportunities to just develop our coaches so that down the road, when we do have positions that are open, we have someone, we have more people that are trained, able to perform those things. Next, Booster Club. So really excited with Booster Club. I noticed the last like couple of years they have really done a great job at getting our community out to our activities. Uh, they do a lot of things like the back to school night, buying burgers and stuff. Uh, During games, they're selling Spartan beer. Their social media presence has been wonderful. I love seeing like all the graphic images that they're sending out to our community. You know, just saying, "Hey, come out to this game, come out to that game." And the neat thing is not just what I would call like the revenue sports that they're really pushing. You know, last night at the soccer game, I was really amazed at how many people showed up. Who else was there? The Boost Club, cooking burgers and selling Spartan gear. You know, and so they have done a really truly promoting our activities at Salida High School. Each month they meet, you know, uh, they provide grants for the teams, the high school teams, a couple of like once every 2 years. They also have like parent representatives for each sport. That way, each team has someone that's speaking on their behalf for the Booster Club. A long-term project that we're working on. Um, Mr. Smith, he brought us some old Salida High School memorabilia. And one of the things that I see as a need at the high school is we have this activity hall, where all the walls are bare. We've put up some banners. One of the things we're trying to do is get some plexiglass over them so we can make sure we're staying fire code. But we're also wanting to get some narrower three-dimensional cases. That way we could put some more things that are like three-dimensional. I really want to bring in some of the Salida history, uh, past history, into this new building. Yes, we have a new building, but this community is very proud of its history and it's really neat. If you come into the activities condo, as we call it, Cassie's done a great job at like pulling up some old images and some old newspaper articles, and you'll see photos from like the 1910 football team and things like that. So uh, we're working with the Booster Club. We're trying to one, let's decorate that activities hall, you know, and then two, just connect that history. Finally, you know, over the years, I've had the opportunity to serve in a volunteer role with various uh, committees with CHASA. Currently, I'm the league president for the Tri Peaks League, which is our primary league that Salida High School participates in. With that, I get to organize and set up the agenda for our monthly AD meetings, but I'm also the representative for our league with the Legislative Council. The great thing about that is, like, I get to have a voice in terms of bylaws and things that are being passed with CHASA. Another committee that I've been asked to be part of is the Clock Task Force. Clock is the committee that creates the classification for the teams across the state. Um, last 2 years ago, I had the opportunity to do an appeal for Salida High School, and uh, while I was rejected, Mike Kruger, the commissioner, asked me to serve on this committee. One of the things that he saw was there was 230 appeals that day if there have any appeals with CHASA, then there's something that's not quite right with the classification. So I get the opportunity to serve with making that a better situation. Along with me serving with all these committees and situations like this, it also puts me in a network with a lot of other ADs, a lot of ADs who've been doing it a lot longer than I have, a lot of ADs that like I get to kind of mentor. And so because of that, I get a great network of other athletic directors who uh, can share with me what have been successful with their programs, what have not. And that's part of my review policy to get Salida into an excellent situation in terms of our policies and procedures. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Marco. Questions, comments from board members?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
It's a little bit of what you talked about increasing staffing and coaches and sure volunteer coaches and so forth. My question is, what are the protections for coaches and for students if there's an injury involving a volunteer coach that's not under insurance for the district?
So all of our volunteer coaches, they are background checked by the district. My understanding is they are protected with the school district as a coach. They're also many of our coaches are members of the High School Coaches Association or various other coaches association that provides a medical leave.
Okay. Is that, do you have anything on that?
I think what I do is, I don't have Aaron here, but I'll work with Aaron and we'll reach out to your insurance and ask that exact question and get you a really specific answer. What happens if a volunteer coach, somebody's not being paid or anything else, the kid's injured while they're supervising the coach? What's the liability of that individual? What's the liability of the district? How does that act?
And whether or not they're part of the follow-up.
And also, in terms of volunteers, the volunteers are never individually supervising our practice. Like, there will always be a paid staff member that is supervising practice.
Thank you.
Although certainly, like in the instance of cross country, those volunteers are always one-on-one with kids when they're out on the trail or whatever in their groups. So while they're not supervising, they are certainly one-on-one with kids. Something to consider. I have a few questions. I guess one of my first things, kind of similar to what Ben's asking, but more on the background check onboarding side, like with getting volunteers, especially if that's going to be a big push moving forward to try to get more volunteers. I know I've volunteered quite a bit, have a bunch of friends who've tried to volunteer. And currently it seems like maybe it's a little bit of a difficult process of going from I'm a volunteer to getting a background check, to getting approved, to getting in the gym or wherever. So do we currently have like a volunteer onboarding process or like regulation policy?
Yeah, so the process is a coach, the head coach will probably have this person as a volunteer. For those that like this, I'll be with them and we will provide information to HR where they have a volunteer process.
Is your experience of what you're hearing that the HR connection from that thing to there, that in the HR space is where we could be more efficient? Or
I'm not sure where the breakdown is, but I've definitely heard that it's challenging to get that initial background check. And then, so I don't know if it's on the HR side or the activity side, but just kind of trying, because I agree with you, like I think this community has so many great volunteers and so many people who are willing to all run this day with the kids, all go in the gym this day with the kids. So we really, if that's going to be a big push, have to make sure we have a very strong onboarding policy and process, because I think people get frustrated when they feel like they're trying to volunteer and they're not getting, it's not happening.
Will, do you think you can check into that one and figure it out since it's going on?
Yeah, so I don't know where the breakdown is.
I would say, like, when I've seen, like, for instance, get information to share for background checks. If that person response to the questionnaire, like there's a link that's sent to the
Right.
email. That usually turns out pretty quick.
Yeah, like mine was turned around in a day.
Yes.
But right away, like Cassie was sharing to me, it was like a day.
Gotcha.
So the process can work really efficiently.
But is it?
But yeah, so just in general, I'd say if that's a big push for us, we need to make sure that that is a process that's working
Obviously,
well.
the background check's essential, so we'll check into it, just trying to see what are we finding, where the gaps are, and what ideas we have to improve. And then the rules, we did some training and changing things around the last 2 months around the background checks happening, so might be another area we can do that.
If we can speed that process up, that's just what we can train and do. It goes and learns it, it's a process. So, allow me to look at some things differently. And the other piece to it is, and then you alluded to, there's a reasonable patience with that. Hey, I want to help. That's great. I still have to make sure, to Matt's point and everyone's point earlier, the person is safe to be around our kids, even though he or she is a known entity. And so that's a process, but it normally does not take long. So I think there's some opportunity there for Oracle, for the athletic department, and myself. We can work with Sherry and whomever to get that done more efficiently.
I get
Rob, keep
another
going.
question. Okay. My next question is more sort of like we have high numbers, which is great. We have a lot of participation. But you kind of mentioned adding new programs. So what is sort of our process for evaluating our current programs and determining how we can maybe improve numbers on some of those? And then along that, if we determine that everyone's to capacity, how are we going to evaluate and start making decisions about what to add?
Well, that was something that I mentioned earlier. Currently, we don't have a true policy or procedure, and that's where I want to meet and work with Dr. Blackburn and Mr. Holt so we can kind of figure out those guidelines. Like, what is the carry capacity of sports before we start adding another sport? One of the things you have to be really careful of when adding a sport. We don't want to be an inch deep and a mile wide. And what I mean by that is we don't want to just add another sport just to add another sport. But if we're pretty deep, now we can start looking at adding another sport. But I want to make sure that when we are deep, we're going to end up with 2 deep programs as opposed to 2 shallow programs.
Mark, do you think a policy for that?
I think we could. I think we could.
Let's have something scheduled for December.
Well, and I think too, like, you know, we're like trying to evaluate coaches more, which are wanting to evaluate people in that system. I think that's good to have something specific. But I guess just in general, evaluating our program, like, are we evaluating just based on numbers and saying, okay, this program is successful because we've had 43 kids and it's the largest team in history? Are we evaluating on if we're winning or losing? Are we evaluating on some sort of survey of satisfaction? Are we evaluating on if numbers significantly drop a year? Like, what sort of criteria are we using to say our programs are successful? And I think that would also lead to saying this coach is successful and this coach is a good fit for our program, versus, you know, I don't know.
So one of the things that what I say is for me is when I see participation. Now, one of the things I would look at is what's the reason that you have a very large senior class that graduated. So naturally, if we have a class of 200 and see goes away, we're getting 100 in the freshman class. There's some natural things like that. But at the same time, it's like if we have a program that has a 40 kids and the following year we're down to 10, that's something that I'm looking at. Why are kids not participating? There has been a situation in the past where I've met with students and they share with me some concerns. And so we've discussed it and we evaluated that. I will say before I was really using participation numbers. If the coach is doing a great job with the relationships with build from the relationships with developing new teams, then the numbers will grow or at least so now that, in my opinion, my goal is no longer to just get kids out. My goal is now to let's see excellence. Now, what does excellent look like? It's going to vary from person to coach. I'm not doing all it's just set goals with each coach individual. Some it might be about winning a state championship. Some it might be we are just competitive. You know, and so it's going to vary from program to program. Like I said, cross country, that's my dad. You know, it's really exciting to see what they're doing. They have anticipations of being for state championship. You know, now the program is very selected. So, you know, hopefully in the future, as like I'm serving on this clock task force committee, the way they classify programs, we will be more appropriately classified with programs in schools that are similar to us. I know a lot of the programs we play against, like in football, those schools are twice the enrollment that we have. And so it's a battle that we're having to deal with at this time. And hopefully in the future, we'll be able to be against programs with similar enrollments to us in similar situations, like having this program.
And maybe extending beyond that is also your question of like, do we have a published policy we call it? Maybe it's not a policy, it's in a different place, but a published place where these are our criteria, not just to evaluate coaches, but to evaluate program strengths, and they're kind of set and they're not as subjective, so to speak. That's what you were kind of thinking of.
Yeah, I think
And how that fits together with high participation and adding, like how do these things talk to each other?
Right, because I certainly think we don't have any business adding programs if we haven't thoroughly vetted our other programs. And, you know, like I look at cheerleading with 9 kids and cross country with 43 and volleyball with 42. Like there's certainly, to me, a lot of space there. And there's probably a lot of girls that if we had something that was more cheer, dance, gymnastics focused, that we could draw more kids. So yeah, so I would like to have a really thorough evaluation process for our current programs before we would go adding other things.
Can you get that maybe by December and you will bring that back? Policy that's got both participation and the ratio development, as well as that policy that's also about how do we evaluate the actual program itself, not necessarily the coach, but those things put together.
Yeah, and it does seem like numbers is obviously
It can't be the only thing.
right. It shouldn't.
And also, there's a, if we were in that program, something that I would really want to consider is what is our infrastructure? You know, what does our infrastructure allow for? If we have to be campers, are we going to have so, you know, there's, well, my son looks like that's not what we're looking to add up. Like, I would be looking for financial programs. You know, like last year there was real estate solutions. That's an infrastructure that we already have. Even with the program, there's been because of flags, uniforms, they were using this for us. So things like that is what I'm trying to do with the program, something like that. Cheerleading, yes, I see that number. We are doing some things that help grow that but we're heading into a direction of trying to be more competitive. We're gymnastic actually every Saturday this fall, our cheer program is heading to receive training in gymnastics so that as we develop into more competitive, we can have a gymnastic tumbling aspect of cheerleading. Also, I do want to say, while cheerleading has a lower number, I do see the positive impact on the girls that are participating. Many of the girls that are in there, to put it politely, are girls that might not be academically eligible if they're not participating. And I also just want to make sure that there's always a place for them to be involved. They, so Tuesdays are great chance. So there's one senior this year. I'm with her, she has not been the entire school year, or this entire school year so far. There was another girl in the program when I read my grade list this morning. She was ineligible. I had a conversation with her. She was able to get a summertime and she's able to, because of the cheerleading, it motivates many students to have success. I know when I was in high school, before I actually understood like how your GPA affects the opportunities to play college football, for example, all I was doing was just enough to be eligible. And later, I became more motivated to increase my GPA so I didn't have to have an SAT score. So anyway, just things like that. But I just want to say, yes, I want to increase cheerleading, but I also don't want to alienate the girls that are participating by bringing in another clientele.
I have one more if you guys don't. So with head coaches hiring assistant coaches, I assume that there's still a process of background checking.
Yes.
and-
So everyone that works with our kids, they will receive a background check. The volunteer background check is unique because it looks at your past. Do you have any felonies or anything like that? Okay, we're clear. The assistant coaches, the head coaches, because they're paid employees, that background check is it's an ongoing thing. So let's say someone gets arrested tonight, that information would be communicated to the school district. So yes, everyone will.
And is there any other criteria with head coaches hiring assistant coaches or any other process, or it's just strictly up to the head coach to bring in whoever they choose?
No, it's a yes and no. I really want my head coaches to have a main voice in my assistant coaches because this is the person that they have to trust. They have to have great chemistry with. I do not want them having a situation where they're always battling each other. And so it's a nice, cohesive unit.
I was just curious, like if the head coach just says this is my
Okay.
assistant coach, is there a process, or
Right.
you're just like, okay,
And
cool,
then-
and you sign up?
No, and then once they have a share if it's someone that I don't know, being in a small community is a job. I know about it. I try to make sure, well, for those that I meet with them, one is just kind of like one share professional with how we are communication. Things that we were on public. You are representing us. And so, regardless of what you do professionally for a living, you represent. So I want to make sure that they're understanding that. I want to make sure that I'm feeling comfortable with them being around my kids, and if I am, then I proceed with recommending them with HR.
My only question, well, maybe more than one, but with the program changes or ads, isn't there like a CHASA timeline approval process? Or we've talked about this for many years,
Mhm.
and so I'm just recalling that in the memory bank.
So what you're referring to is like, for instance, if we were a brand new school to join CHASA, there is a process and procedure. But because we are an established member of CHASA, if we decided to add a new activity, we just simply would would join it or be part of it. They would add us into
If we
a
get
league.
those recommendations back in December, let's say it's a fall thing.
Mhm.
We had in December and the board or whatever, there are 2 months, whatever they needed to walk it through before you got full authority. Are you still going to get them scheduled? And I think like those kind of things, get the schedules built. I know sometimes you guys have the sports schedules built way ahead of time.
It depends on where we're at in the cycle. Like, for instance, going into this next fall, depending on what sport it is, like, let's pretend like we don't have a football program. Football is a 2-year cycle where you have a home and away. So right now we're on first year of it, next year we're in second year. So we wouldn't be able to jump into a football cycle. A sport like, let's say flag football, because their competitions are more of like tournament style.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of getting into tournaments.
Is that kind of what you're referencing?
Yeah, it was just like if we decide to add programs, I would assume that it would be next school year.
Ideally, you would like to do it like at a cycle. Like I said, we're at the start of we're at the first year of our 2-year cycle. Adding boys football is not an option unless we did like a JV or independent schedule. But other sports, cross country, if we wanted to add that, we could jump in, just because it's not a case of a home and away opportunity.
Yeah, I would say like my personal preference is not to add like a cut policy. I don't think that's what we're about, but I also 42 volleyball girls turns into 20 of them probably having a really difficult time of staying engaged throughout the season because they're not getting much playing time.
Correct.
So the more opportunities we can offer, the better. And COVID was in between, but I've been on the board for a while, and I feel like we talked about it my first year here of we should look at more programs because we have good numbers. So be encouraged to see what you come back with in December.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think, you're not going to get these kind of participation if we don't have like good systematic programs in place or a good foundation. So kudos to all you've done in your few years that you've been here. And marching band, I know Andrea left, but like I thought that was like 9 kids last year or something. And it's like, I don't know how many of these like crossover and if we're that many kids or if there's some that are in multiple, but I think it's great. And I think it speaks to, you're not going to get that many athletes or participants if they don't necessarily enjoy the coaches that we're putting around them. But I do. So I appreciate kind of focusing in now on kind of improvements and excellence. And, we talk about every student having somebody in the district, and many students will probably fall to one of their coaches potentially. So I think it's kind of instilling that across in our activities is just as important.
Yes, sir. I'm excited. So I refer to it as good problems.
Okay. Everybody good? Okay. Thank you, Marco.
Thank you.
District reports.
Okay.
Dr. Blackburn, have at it.
All right. I'm going to pass this out. You've already got it in your board packets, but your board member, this is like one of the 4 pieces of paper you need to be successful. One of them is your budget. Oh, yeah. Okay. One of them is your budget. One of them is your audit. One of them is your DPF or SPF, your school performance frameworks or district performance frameworks. Like, this is an essential document. So I actually took the time to print it off because I think it is something you should be aware of. Again, we did amazing. And so again, we're school district just doing so well and so many things. There's so much to celebrate. I don't want to over highlight one person and make someone else feel like they didn't do great. There's also strengths and weaknesses. And so the staff are already looking into those things. The first page with all the call outs is because this is kind of a weird grade card, and it kind of gives you an annotated way to read it. And so that you know exactly what each thing means. So you can have a little more independence in trying to read that. That's the first 3 or 4 pages. A school performance framework will always end, though, with this last page. That is the interpretation of the grade card, right? And I call it a grade card because it's just a more traditional language. than a performance framework. So the first thing is the district is accredited. You've got accredited with distinction is that highest level. We were close. We were about 8% off of that this year. And then accredited, improvement, priority improvement, and turnaround. So again, we're a district and a community that can to continue to do amazing when it comes with these perspectives and these definitions of success. And so what is on your agenda and consent tonight would be to approve that our district is accredited. Again, in a great space. One area across the district, and we'll see it in a couple different things, is the area of growth. I think that is something where all our principals are looking and saying, how can we do better in that? And so I really appreciate each of my principals. We had a meeting today, and I was kind of immediately the win. I've got staff saying we want to have more professional development of math at the middle school. That ask came in today of we're digging in here into this space around this topic. Can we get some more help on this? And so that's where the staff is really investing energy and time. So your district overall would be accredited. That's what that means. Then if you flip, there are about 3 or 4 pages a piece in your packet. Right, your next one I have in order is Salida High School. It's performance. Salida Middle School, performance. Longfellow, performance. Crest, performance. HEA, performance. All your district schools are all at the highest level in the state. You can't celebrate more than that. And I know sometimes as board and superintendent, I want to get in and make everything perfect and great. And yet in some ways, if we're board members and superintendents, if the budget's good, the audit's good, and these are all good, some ways that's the job. And so it's check, check, check that things are in great shape. So proud of our staff and our kids who make this happen. But when you look at the high school, you will see that academic growth is the area where they're weak. And so that's where they're trying to spend their energy. Jesse was sharing some of their strategies they're talking about for their next professional development day. I know Michelle's building, they're looking at their strategies for the next professional development day, really digging into how can we change our actual instruction and improve that part of our performance. So that's definitely where our focus is at. The other thing on the high school I will mention, we are continuing to study matriculation. So it's in the post-secondary workforce readiness category. It continues to be lower than what I would expect, what Mr. Hall would expect, what Service would want for HEA. And so that continues to be an area where we want to continue to grow. And we're working on that. I know Jesse and I are taking 6 or 7 people to a conference next week to go study more learning, trying to how can we get more and more of our staff understanding how we get our kids engaged in purpose and kind of that dreaming of something after high school, which yields and can be seen. One of the elements is in matriculation. So hard part of a matriculation is the data is always lagging. So it's always like a year and a half behind. So we should see the data that was from this graduating class that just graduated in May. We'll see that data in December, January-ish. Will be the first look at it, and it'll be on next year's SPF. So this matriculation data is not for the class of 2024. It's for the class of 2023. So that's just one of those data points that we know is important. We put a lot of energy into that. Pause. Trying to be.
How does that get reported? Does that come through the Department of Education?
It comes to the Department of Education. And so any formal program where a kid enrolls, their data gets shared nationally. And so there's the clearinghouse in higher ed particularly does a lot of these databases. And so they kind of raid those databases and create the statistic. One of the other things we're going to do, I was talking to Jim Sampson, is once we get through this opening season of school, is we're going to try and schedule some more time with that company that does the data and say, is there something we're missing? Like, I don't think there's any mistakes, but are we coding something wrong? An example would be surprising. Let's say a kid is doing concurrent enrollment with CMC. Well, they're not actually in the matriculation data as I understand it, right? Because they're being recorded as a high school kid in that database. They're not being recorded in both databases. And so it's kind of be like, oh, is this just a data game that we're losing? And there's some way that we can put a tick mark in 2 columns? Because it's not, the data is not really tracking with how many kids we have participating in things like concurrent enrollment. It's one of our strategies we want to look into and dig into more. Yep.
Yeah, well, my question is
kids really want to be taught, or are they getting this conflict? It doesn't match up with what we do about our kids, right? And I wonder about the kids that do gap years. They're not counted, but if they go back after the gap year, they should be there's just there's multiple factors in that matriculation rate. I wonder if we can figure that out at a local level since we have kids graduating each year and tracking that really what we do in high school.
So
Well, no, mine was actually more just about the pathways, which we have to work for, because I feel like we've been waiting for this for a long time and finally see like concrete pathways, and I assume now the actual classes and things that are gonna be part of those pathways is coming. Do we know when that's coming? Because I would assume this is going to improve matriculation if the kid's like, oh, I actually really like this field, I wanna keep studying.
Yeah, so actually today I went around to coordination team, talking about this
the January board meeting is his annual report. We have all the kids come in, so that's when we're trying to make sure it's should be a printed, published thing that we can flip the switch.
So the other piece of that is considering advisory, weekly academic checking with kids. We're currently working on a huge, this pathway that advisors do for kids who about their graduation pathway. And have good conversations here about their graduation pathway. This is their kid. So it's really exciting, you know, the action plan, part of the action plan is that we have some kids who are also graduation pathway. Yeah, some, the conversation we had in the previous scenario, this is a real conversation. We have some kids that are really disenfranchised in school, right? And any time we talk to them about that plan, their plan is to get out of school, right? To be done in school. And conveying to them in a way where it makes sense that this is a plan for them to get out of school, live a purpose, right? And that's one of the true challenges. I think that's where we struggle with that matriculation across is a group of students that are disenfranchised and
I'm excited. I think by January it won't be a problem. I think we can bring you the finished product, so to speak. The next one in the packet is the Salida Middle School. I just want you to notice, because the Salida Middle School is weird when you're reading these grade cards. In the top right corner, in a grayed out thing, it says EM, 1 year. It means elementary and middle. So the way the state, because Michelle was asking us, because she's never seen this before, because we have a 5th through 8th grade class, sometimes the data is just talking about 5th and 6th grade from an elementary model and comparing us to all the elementary schools in the state. Sometimes it's the 7th and 8th grade against all the other 6th, 7th, and 8th grade middle schools in the state. And like this one, this is 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th together. And so whenever, if you're trying to look at that, it's a really important data point. And it's hard for Michelle and I to keep straight as we're trying to say, wait a minute, if I'm trying to create a trend line, what happened over the last 3 years? Is it heading up, getting better, or not getting better? I've got to be really careful about that little element. So this one that you have in your packet is the official that you'd be approving. The school's doing well. You'll again see growth is the area. Academic growth is the space where they're looking at that and they're trying to say, do we have the right, we would say, formative assessments? Are we really figuring out what the kids know so that it's driving our instruction so that we change what we teach the next day in that space? So That's what that one is there, and they're really focused on that. They've changed their whole professional development days for September and October to respond to how can we improve those growth pieces and parts. So that's the element, or the middle, excuse me. I do want to highlight for a second. I don't want to make someone look bad by somebody else, but you'll look then at Longfellow. That may be, I have not been able to research it across the state. That may be the best SPF in the state. It may. It's definitely close. 92.3% of the points. Their growth is at 100% of the kids exceeding it, basically. Their achievements off the chart. This is just third and fourth grade in the mix. Third grade has done a good thing, but I got a fourth grade teacher here, so I'm going to call out Janae, who they've changed faces on that team, and yet year after year, through good instruction and good planning, they make it happen. They are a great team and a great example of what's happening in our schools. So I'm proud of them for that, and proud of Corey for your team, because you don't get to that without everybody being on board. The next one in the pack is going to be your Crest Academy. So that's, again, a middle school and elementary, 5th, 6th, 7th, and grade, what you're looking at here. Amazing on achievement. They're looking at growth, particularly in the math area. They're trying to say, hey, what's going on? Is this a curriculum issue? And so the teachers are really digging into that space and that building as well. Again, they're in performance and good job. And then we got yesterday the AEC, which is your HEA. And that is, I wrote the law for this grade card, and this is the best AEC report card I've ever seen, hands down. So service, well done. It's an amazing thing. The area they're working on is academic growth. But just an amazing celebration there. A lot of that comes from how many kids they got diplomas to last year. And so sometimes it's a couple years of growing, and I think this is another building year. If we're talking about it from a sports perspective, they got to rebuild their team. But they have an amazing program there, and kudos to them. That's a lot of exceeds on that pace. So I'm proud of them. I will pause there and see if anybody has any questions. I think everybody understands this, but I want to make sure I go slow without wasting any time.
Can I just ask about CMAS?
Mm-hmm.
So when I look at those numbers as a person who doesn't really love testing, or
Yep.
I think it's a great measure of a lot of things, like, is that a really super hard test? Because when it says to me 31% meets or exceeds, what does that mean? But also, like, 70% are just fine. Do you know that, like?
Yeah, it's a really confusing mark.
Yeah.
So I helped create the cut scores for the science exam of CMAS. I think I shared this last year. And so I was the only administrator in a big, huge conference room of all science teachers. And we all broke up and we took the different tests. We actually took them and tried to take them and figure out what is a passes, what is a kind of passes, what doesn't pass. Not a single question went through any of the committees, and everyone came up with the same answer. So does that mean every science teacher and specialist doesn't know what's going on in science? No, it's not what it means. And in every example, the majority of all of those teachers and specialists, the vast majority wasn't a passing score. So does that mean nobody knows what's going on in science? I just give that as an anecdotal example of they're trying to set what they believe is their best guess on what would be, I actually am proficient in this area. Some of that has to do with fluency. So if you're somebody who doesn't think fast, right? Because if you're fluent in something, it comes fast and easy. Think of like, basic fluency in reading. How fast, how many letters, how many words do you read a minute? But that's not the same thing as how many words did you comprehend. So fluency sometimes gives you some instances, and that part of the test will tell you that, but it may not tell you how much they actually can comprehend if they're a slower processor, as an example. So it is not simply a pass-fail test or a true-false test, and you got it or not. It's actually a lot more complicated than that. The reason I'm glad the principals are focused on growth is that one I think has a lot more value to us. Obviously, the area we're going to focus in on, because I think it's an area we can get better. What that does is they take every kid who got in 31% on the test, and they compare them to every 31 in the state and say what should be their trajectory if they're going to catch up or have the same level. And that's meeting growth, right? In the states, level for meeting the growth is a 50% expectation. That's the PET score, right? So you've got Longfellow. I think it was overall, what was it, Corey? Like readings 95 or something. Some crazy high number. When the state's number you're comparing yourself against is 50. So what these tests do, I hate these tests. Let me just say that. And they give us an indicator of success. So it's not irrelevant data in any way.
Well, can I,
Yeah, jump in.
so is there a correlation here or some kind of connection to then the grades the students are getting in classes? Like, is there any connection there? Like, if 31% in seventh grade math meets or exceeds expectations, which is above the state average, which is interesting, where that bar is set. But do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
then does that mean less
Every-
than half of the kids are
Passing?
or getting an A, like, is there any connection there?
I would say no is the simple kind
So
of
kids
street
could be
answer.
like getting all A's and B's in the class, most of them,
Mm-hmm.
but then when it comes to the test, it's obviously not grade on the same thing, but like,
Right. It may not have a strong correlation. You're going to see some correlation to that, but there's no one-to-one correlation that you could strike there.
it's not an indicator of if kids are struggling. If a lot of
It
students
is
are
an
struggling.
indicator. It's part of what, like, teaching teams, when they're finding a kid who's not doing well in class, they're going to maybe pull these scores and say, does this give us any indication? Okay, now we've got 4 different data points, one of them being CMAS that says this kid. The nice part about CMAS, though, is it might point kid case level or classroom or a whole grade level. We can actually look at it by standard. And so we actually pull these graphs and these charts and say, hey, standard 2.1E, right, which is how they're kind of labeled. Wow, we're under the state average. What is that standard? When do we teach it? How do we teach it? So it is informative in that way. And you can also do it at the kid level, an instructor can. But I don't know if principals want to add to that.
The other thing it does, Dave, is what you just spoke of with the standards. The other thing it does is it not just compares you to the state, it compares, the standards are listed from least difficult to most difficult. And so along that continuum, you can see how a school does compared to the state on what's easy versus more difficult standards. So it's actually really good data that you can use then to turn around and say, hey, did we teach this and they didn't learn it? Because that's a far different question than we didn't teach it or we didn't teach it correctly. So it's useful, in my opinion.
We do get more specific feedback than on which standards specifically. are being-
Absolutely, we can show you that at a
Yeah, if you want to see that.
Well, I don't need it.
Yeah. When I bring the unified improvement,
Yeah.
the teachers are looking at that. When I bring back the unified improvement plan next month, it should have some of those data points, like in math and growth areas. It should say, okay, here's that data point. What are some kind of more disaggregated looks at that? So it's not just a generic look. I will also tell you the PSAT, which is in Jesse's world, does a little different, where that is reset on a regular basis to maintain a bell curve. So it always is in the nation, 50% of the people should be passing, 50% of the people should be failing. It is not the same. They don't set the standards the same way as CMAS are set.
So maybe I'm thinking PSAT where they're
Mhm.
always moving the goalpost.
Basically. So if everyone got smarter in the whole nation, then they would move what passing is.
But not necessarily these test results.
And so your PSAT for your high school is yes,
But that is, but not the other ones.
but not the
So-
CMAS, which is 3rd through 8th grade.
And then potentially in some of these, but also not, it's like the timing of when we teach things. Because if the tests are in
April.
March or April and we're not teaching that curriculum until May, or if we got it back in September, like,
Right. And so part of that's just teachers looking in and saying, can they dial in their instruction? Is it just a timing, a pacing issue? Or is it, in some cases, like we're looking, we have to change our literacy program for 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade this year because the companies no longer supporting it. And it's the question of, okay, when we choose new curriculum, we got to make sure it aligns to the state standards, which in theory should show itself when you teach for when the test is given. There should be some, if you pick the right curriculum, it should help support that piece. I would just say I hate when people throw out these taste data because there's a lot to question about it. And I hate, but there's something there. It is a part of evaluating success. And it is most definitely not all of evaluating success for a district. So I am very thankful that our buildings are in a space, our communities in a space where we don't have to chase the test monster like many communities will have to. And all of their energy, only conversations they'll have is around CMAS data. I think we need to have more robust conversations around human development and learning and thinking than just this test. So we're doing well. It's giving us an indicator. We're going to look into our growth areas and say, what can we find there and leverage to improve our instruction for our kids. But overall, it's great news. And again, it's fun being part of a district with one of the best elementary schools in the state. Good job, Corey and team. So.
It's nice being spoiled as a board member, and we can go through this and then work on other things than the test scores. So. Okay. Anything else for David on student achievement? David, do you have anything else in general?
Yeah, I want to go over one other thing because I want to show this to you, and I want to get my principals out of here as well. But this is initial data for you, looking at October count, which is part of what I'm supposed to report on tonight. So student enrollment data trends. This is not your final October count. These numbers are not finalized in any way, shape, or form, but they are. The data is getting pretty neat and clean, and allows you as a board member to really look at the trends in enrollment. I would expect your master facility plan to be finalized next month. We're just working on layout now with our student intern from the high school. And so once we get that layout down, we'll bring this. This tells you some stuff in comparison to your demographic. But what overall, the basic thing is you're looking at total FTE funding for kindergarten through 12. So not adding in Teresa's world in this. This is just K-12. You're 33 FTE up or 32 students up. I would expect that to continue to drop down and stabilize somewhere between 20 or 25. Your budget was built on 0. And we had a demographic report that was saying between 15 to 20. So we're a little bit above what our demographic report is, but the predictions you guys have been planning on are spot on. So I just bring that because there is a strong connection between your SPFs, right? Because parents read this and say, wow, I want to be part of Janae Martinez's classroom, right? And so there are more kids coming to our school district when we see our staff put out these great things. And so I just want to make sure we don't miss the connection between that, whether it's my staff perspective or whether it's a board perspective of we are up again. If we maintain this demographic pace of growth that we're seeing right now, our facilities will be impacted much sooner than we were hoping. So good news and bad news. There might be some policy changes that this could drive, but I wanted you to get the sense for this. When I come next month, I should be able to get you pretty dang close to what the official October count is. But right now, I'm guessing between 20 and 25 more students this year than we had the previous year. This is not Montessori. Some people ask me a question. Montessori, they have one kid, we get one kid. These are new students for the most part coming to our community, new families. So we're seeing growth in that sense.
How are there 26 new 12th graders?
That would be your net result because you had a very small graduating class last year because of COVID. That was your last COVID class. Most of those kids who graduated started, and not everybody who came to 9th grade wanted to do the remote world of COVID. So we saw a big kind of online contingent or homeschool contingent. Those have phased out now. Now you're just seeing basically 100 kids per grade level.
So that's kind of just now a stabilized normal number. It's not that we all of a sudden had 26 new.
I always look diagonally.
Yep. The reading diagonally is the right way to read the chart if
I
you're
was like,
trying to
that's
see
just
it.
a crazy number. Who's transferring their senior year to Salida High School?
No, that's where that's at. The other thing you always see in the high school is you have SMS, Crest, and Montessori all come in at ninth grade into the high school. So you see these, you have to kind of converge those numbers there. And we talked to Montessori. We have a sense for where their numbers are at. But they're pretty much at max capacity. And we'll see where their situation goes there. Any other questions about SPFs or just enrollment numbers in general? It's all good news. I'll take it.
All right, thank you. Any questions, comments, board, for our managers and principals while they're here?
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Hope the year's got off to a good start. And thanks for coming tonight. Enjoy the rest of your evening if you're leaving, which I'm sure 99% of you will.
Get more comfortable.
Good, keep rolling. I see a break needed. 5-minute break. Here we go.
Everybody just make sure your mics are
Quinn and
off.
Floyd.
All righty. Welcome back. We're good on YouTube still, I assume? Okay. Looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda. Dan?
Second?
Mandy? Questions, comments?
My only question, I might have missed it with a lot of stuff getting added late, is I just didn't see the DAC member leadership. Did that?
Was in the packet. It's the same as last year,
It's
right?
the exact same as last year.
Okay. That's fine. I don't,
Should be there, but.
Gwen Allen's still cheering
I
it.
feel fine with it regardless. I just wanted to make sure it was actually,
It was just a random weird list of
I
names.
just missed it.
And Ben is still from a board. He'll still be our person. So we're rescheduled to meet in October next.
Jody, you still with us? You still good?
I'm good.
All right, she's still there. Okay, ready for a vote?
All right. Dr. Breckenridge Pettit,
Hi.
Dr. Hill.
Aye.
Mr. Hobbs.
Aye.
Mrs. Pascal.
Aye.
Ms. Strickman.
Aye.
And Mr. Smith.
Okay. Discussion items, none. Beautiful. Action items. Do we actually have second reading policies?
We do, so 2 sets.
Okay,
They were-
sorry, missing that.
Yep.
A, you went down that way. So looking for a motion to approve the 2 second reading policies.
So moved.
Good.
Second.
Andy?
Mandy.
David, anything in these 2 that we need to be
I
made
just,
aware of?
the only one I'm passing around is the dress code. When I went through it, Mandy pointed this out last month. I went with our foundational thing. I did send it to you through email, but it's coming late, so I gave you a published copy. And basically, the big addition is the law is required that people can have more freedom in how they dress for graduation. So that, for whatever reason, that was out of his law. I don't know the story behind it, but so a few minor changes, but I basically kept our dress code and just added that piece in. So that's what the second reading would be, and I think we're ready for third reading on that one as well. And Mandy, I think that's what you're pointing me towards last month, right? Yeah. And I couldn't find any others. I read through all of those in the second readings. I couldn't find any else, any reason not to go with the rest of the ones from CASB.
Okay.
I'm okay, just want to make sure, because I've got them broken out in 2 blocks, all of the second reading policies.
All the second reading policies.
Sure.
Ready for a vote?
And if you are.
All right, Dr. Breckenridge Pettit,
Aye.
Dr. Hill,
Aye.
Mr. Hobbs,
Aye.
Mrs. Pascal.
Aye.
Ms. Strickman.
Aye.
And Mr. Smith.
Aye. Okay, looking for a motion to approve strategic priorities that we set out in the annual retreat.
Thank you. I'll do that. So moved.
Thank
Jen
you,
with the
Jen.
motion. All right, second.
A second.
Andy,
We're passing around the updated version there.
David, you want to give a?
Again, I print things off. It's either because I think they're essential as a board member, so I want to make sure you have a hard copy. This is nothing different than what was in your electronic board packet. I just want to say, and I know I put it in my board report, I think under the facilities, I think we'll get all of that like done. I think in that technology we'll get done. I think that we're going to see some stuff in operations that maybe we move the needle a little bit. Maybe it's we get a full robust plan in place, but it may not be. It may recur till next year. Like I just want to be clear with people that as a priority setting, I want to set expectations. There's no way I can get all of this done. Some of this is going to be a couple years of moving things forward, but I definitely want to make sure that these are the things we're focused on. That's what I'm talking to principals about. I know Jesse and I laugh because there's still a lot of attention on the high school. Jesse really appreciates all my attention. And so we'll continue to work on those things. So that's kind of what there, and it kind of does set out what we're looking at for our calendar of implementation for our board meetings. That is that last page. So any questions, comments, or anything else I can help with? know we've had robust conversations about this previously.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if what we just talked with Marco about fits in activities management that's already in operations, or
That's
we
why
just-
it's there.
yeah, or if we just added more to your plate. But I think the realization of this is lofty goals and priorities for the year, and we know that we're not going to complete and check every box, but these are where we're hoping to make some progress.
And you also know I like to overachieve, and
Yeah,
I give it my best go.
you overdo it.
Got to set expectations, right? It's something I'm proud of about our leadership team and our staff and as the generals. We don't just talk, we get stuff done. It's something I think that's why we continue to get scores year in and year out. We're not staying put. So
Okay, any other questions?
All right, ready for vote? Dr. Breckenridge Pettit.
Aye.
Dr. Hill.
Aye.
Mr. House.
Aye.
Mrs. Pascal.
Aye.
Ms. Strickman. Aye. And Mr. Smith.
All right. Okay, moving on to C, looking for a motion to approve resolution 2024-25-01, declaring surplus property and authorizing sale of 349 East 9th Street.
So moved.
Good. Second?
Second.
Good. This would be Kesner, 349, I believe.
349 is the Kesner building. Yes.
We have an appraisal. We discussed this whenever we discussed it, 2 months ago.
June. We discussed it
June.
many, many times.
June throughout the process. So have that ready to be executed and let David finalize documents based on kind of that appraised value that we have. So, any other questions on this one? It's a bigger one. Doesn't happen too often, so appropriately as an action item. Good partner. Glad they're going to be in that building. So, ready for vote?
All right, Dr. Breckenridge Pettit.
Aye.
Dr. Hill.
Aye.
Mr. House.
Aye.
Mrs. Pascal.
Aye.
Ms. Strickman. Aye. And Mr. Smith.
Aye. Okay. D, looking for a motion to approve resolution 2024-25-02, declaring surplus property and authorizing sale of 310 East 9th Street.
So moved.
Thanks, Jen. Only question on old HEA or Brady Bunch building or whatever it's affectionately called. Still no appraisal, so we kind of set a baseline on prior estimates.
Your resolution says as the appraisal sets.
Okay.
So, we're waiting for the appraisal to come back. So
Yeah, it says purchase price shall not be less than fair market value as determined by an appraisal completed by a
Okay. Yet again, good partners.
All right, we ready? Take that as a yes.
Ready.
Dr. Breckenridge Pettit.
Aye.
Dr. Hill.
Aye.
Mr. House.
Aye.
Mrs. Pascal.
Aye.
Ms. Strickman.
Aye.
And Mr. Smith.
Looking for a motion on item E, approve staff ratified policy GCC AFA-N, extended leaves of absence for medical reasons. Looking for a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Andy.
Second.
Thank you, Jen. Any questions, comments on this one?
I would like to thank David for coming up with this policy because I was not hopeful that there would be any policy that I would feel happy to vote on after the course of about the last year. So I'm surprised, pleasantly, and impressed. Feels like a great policy. I'm glad that our partners and our staff also like it. So thank you. I think that was like a giant hill to climb.
it was a giant hill climb. Really appreciate how the people on CBT did help. And particularly this last week, I've been sick and dealing with other stuff, and they've just taken care of the business and officially got it done. So Mike and those others on the team there have done a great job to get this moved forward. I really appreciate it, answering questions of staff. And also being able to wise enough to help their staff members understand, like I know one person asked a question at some point, like, why is it 5 years you have to wait till you can access again versus 4? And they're able to answer that and also say, this isn't like a forever thing. We can come back and change that number if we need to. So I appreciated how they approached things in the last few weeks. And they also added little nuances when we got a chance to review it that was helpful.
I also think that it's important to note that it really is a much better policy than it was for staff before. Because there were no benefits before. You got approved for long-term leave, that was it. And now this policy is offering fringe benefits, and it specifically mentions that the returning employee returns on their salary schedule and not probationary status. So I feel like those are 3 really big wins for the staff in this policy, and that was part of what we didn't like about the other policy, is it actually provided 0 benefit to the staff. So this is a much better policy for our staff. So I'm glad that they see that.
I appreciate you noticing that. I think we also did stick with the word fringe benefits because there's some other things around para and other aspects, not just health insurance. And so we did as a team really feel like that was the best language. We could come back and review that just like other items. But like you said, this really does give clarity and protection to everybody in the relationship, and make sure that those benefits are there for those people.
Not to put you on the spot, Janae, but you're the lone CBT rep here. Anything you have to add, or?
No, I feel like we had some good discussions. There were some things that I noticed that we had in the previous policy that weren't included in this new policy, and we had the discussion and we added those few things. And I feel like it didn't change the policy enough that it made it crazy, but it fixed the things that we thought needed to be fixed. And I feel like overall it's a good policy, and I'm just excited that we'll have something in place for people in a situation where unfortunate circumstances happen, and that we can protect those people during those times.
I do appreciate CBT was strong. They're like, no, we can't wait for a cycle. We got to get this done right away, because what if somebody had an unfortunate circumstance in October? So this being voted on tonight, if you approve it, which I assume you will, allows us tomorrow morning to then move forward with that person who might be in that situation and protect them, support them, whatever the words would right be.
And then MOU that's outstanding kind of just keeps the sabbatical policy kind of in that bold place.
The MOU is, the sabbatical is the one that's inactive, we'll call it. It's the only policy that's still sitting out there. It's not off the books, but it's not able to be used. So, and that's clear now, which I appreciate. I think it's better for everybody.
Okay, ready for a vote?
All right. Dr. Breckenridge Pettit.
Aye.
Dr. Hill.
Aye.
Mr. Hobbs.
Aye.
Mrs. Pascal.
Aye.
Ms. Schiffman. Aye. And Mr. Smith.
Aye. Okay, that's it for action items. Moving into board communications committee reports, Mandy and Bosse's.
We have a meeting Thursday. I have not read the board packet, because I read the board packet for today.
Priorities.
There's nothing exciting.
Okay.
Good.
So I'll let you know next.
Facilities, myself and Karen.
Can I mention one thing
Go
on
ahead,
BOCES
go ahead.
that Mandy wouldn't know, because the big change was we having our own BOCES special ed coordinator dedicated. It's working great. I think our special ed staff are getting much better advice, and we're chasing that minutia that matters, and people are getting faster, better responses from paperwork sides to really complicated cases. It's already yielding good things. We meet every single week, she and I do, discussing things. So I'm already very happy with the change. Our overall assessed value assessment of what we have to pay BOCES didn't really change, but I think our services went way up. I'm very happy with how it's coming and how it's helping teachers. So just wanted to add that.
Okay, thank you. Facilities, we talked a lot about them the past several months. Whether or not we talked about it before, I don't remember, but we did meet with the Housing Trust to talk about the quadplex in Spartan Heights. We did order an appraisal on that as well, and so once we get that back, we can keep those conversations going. So other than that, pretty much everything else you are up to date on. Communications, Jen and Matt.
I mean, thanks, Kim. Love the website. Love the app. It's super awesome.
Coming along.
Yeah.
It's been, I don't know, Mike, I'm using jokes. No, it's been really interesting. Like with our reunification drill yesterday at the middle school, I learned some things about the app that were already in process trying to get fixed. And just some little details as we continue to use stuff and figure out how we can use it better. So, it's exciting stuff though.
Great to get them rolled out. David, do you have any updates from the retreat? in regards
Just
to
communications, we are looking at a staff engagement survey that would go out in October, but we've got to work on the design of that piece. So that's a little overwhelmed with other incidents lately, so we haven't gotten to that. I think we do have the right people on board now to try and work on some of the bigger picture communication plan stuff. So we'll start to roll that out over the next month. We did have an intern from the high school program join our communications team, Ruby Mossman. Very excited for her to come and work with Kim and I. So those are some of the key places. I think the biggest thing in communications is actually a technology infrastructure issue, which is more on the security side of the communications. So reunification is, working and learning the app, and Kim's learning how to make some redesign pieces. But we're also exploring, now that we have a new infrastructure, what else needs to change. I don't know where else to put these things, but did learn today, because we met as a district-wide safety team that has your cops and your fires there, and you also have the hospital emergency personnel there, and we have Sean from our team, and we also brought Josh in as the technology person to that district team. But what they did let us know is there's been a change from the electric company side, that anytime there's not anytime, but many times there's an electrical down. I'm losing my
When
words.
the electricity goes out,
Thank
due to a wire being hit by a tree, a bird, a house, whatever takes a wire down, that they will not just fix that and turn it back on, that they will fix that and they will physically walk the whole entire line. I don't know how far, and to examine, and that outages such as that will now be much longer. It won't be if it's a little 2-second thing at your house, that's normally a local thing. If it's something that a wire coming into town, it could be extended, an extended outage.
So that has security implications, because most of your systems are riding on that. You have to have electricity. So we're talking a lot about that now. That's where we're starting to focus our attention to say, how does that weak leg in our system? What do we need to come back with? What do we design? And then also Josh is bringing to us, what are some other things? There was a school shooting, unfortunately, in our nation again. They had an extra little buzzer system that they use, and so we can't implement that. Josh is exploring that and other systems that we might put in place for next year as an extra lockdown procedures, now that we have the infrastructure necessary to ride those. But now we got to look at the electrical systems and make sure those can also support it before we get ourselves totally technology dedicated, which requires electricity, and then you're kind of stuck if your electricity goes out or something. So those are the things we're talking about. It's in the communications bucket, but it's in the security bucket, it's in the facilities bucket. So I wasn't sure where to bring that one in, but that just came out today. We were meeting with our kind of community-wide safety team. So.
Okay. Jen, anything from Casby?
Not anything big. It does sound like for the annual convention, they will be adding something on cell phone banning. I'm kind of surprised they weren't already, but it'll be cool if they do, just because it would be great to hear from some of those schools that have been doing it, what works, what doesn't work. I just am finishing up Anxious Generation, and it mentioned a school in Durango that started this back in 2012. So it seems like there could actually be some good, deeper data on this than just someone who started it this year. So
Great.
We'll see. That's all I have.
Thank you. Ben, there's nothing from DAC because you haven't met yet?
No, never mind. I was gonna say, I wasn't there at the last meeting, but you can see the list of people that are approved.
Policy audit update, start fresh next month, hopefully.
Yep, I was not able to get anything to Mandy. We were doing other things this month, so Mandy's the one who's got those first 4 books of policies to review with me. I'll get those to her here. She's waiting on me. Big spreadsheets. It's going to be great.
Jody, do you have an update on the League of Women Voters for us?
Yes, I do. They've been awesome. It's a new partnership, and we have Teacher McCluskey coming to our town September 24th, 5:30 at the Scout House. And that's a question and answer for constituents. Then our next step, David, correct me if I'm wrong, is that we'd like to have an open forum to gather information from the public about what they think about cell phones in the classroom, mostly from parents.
I believe we were shooting for a December time slot.
Oh, that's better. December.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. What?
So we were looking at another hosted event by kind of Q&A, specifically with the board, the community hosted by the League of Women Voters, focused on December, which we post-election.
yeah.
Because the League of Women Voters,
Oh, that's
obviously,
right. We have to
November
wait till the election's over. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're great.
Okay, so that's a Tuesday night, it looks like. So beautiful.
Kim, let's get that invite out to the board.
It is unfortunately parent-teacher conferences at the middle school and the high school that night.
Okay.
You did.
We will mention to the Speaker of the House
Tell
that
the
she needs
Speaker
to be
of the
more
House
aware of parent-teacher
to return
conferences,
at a different.
right?
Come on, McCluskey. Okay, very good. Just for others, if they want to go, we'll have a regular meeting the 8th. Agenda review. Who wants to jump on that one this go around? Okay. Designate Jen for agenda review. All right. We've got a lot of different moving
I was
parts.
gonna say, can we get the lawyer on the phone,
Yeah.
then do your
you-
script?
Can you text her and let her know to call?
I am. She's
Sure.
calling you.
Okay, she should have the link to call in, yes.
So to our guests, they're moving into executive session next, and that's the last thing. But we got to get all the right things in order so it's said properly.
Yeah.
You need her to text, call you.
She should have the number to call, and then I can add her to the meeting. I think,
Thanks,
without
everyone.
losing.
Thanks, Janae.
Thank you, Janae.
This is new technology, so I'm still learning.
Nice to meet you, Floyd.
All right, we'll see you next month. Bye.
Thank you all.
Bye.
I was thinking Jesse, myself, and the lawyer to invite.
Yeah.
let us know.
You're still in your public meeting?
We
Yes.
are. We wanted to get you on the phone before we went to executive.
Okay. Want to clarify on record that the Board of Education has issues to discuss in executive session as follows: to confer with the attorney for the school district to receive advice on specific legal questions pursuant to CRS 24-6-4024B concerning the school district's responsibilities to respond to notice of alleged sexual misconduct by an employee. Do I have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved. Second.
Thank you, Matt. Second, thank you, Ben. Any questions, discussion? For executive session, we will have the Board of Education as well as Superintendent Blackburn, Assistant Superintendent Will Waddell, High School Principal Jesse Hull, and the board's attorney Melissa Barber from Kaplan and Ernest. Looking for a roll call vote to go into executive session.
Dr. Breckenridge Pettit,
Here.
and that's a vote to move to executive session. Jody, that was an affirmative vote to move to executive session.
Oh, I thought you were voting for a sentence. That is it, yes.
Yes, that's an aye.
Thank you.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Dr.
Aye.
Hill, thank you. Dr. Hill.
Aye.
Mr. Hobbs.
Aye.
Mrs. Pascal.
Aye.
Ms. Schiffman.
Aye.
And Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Let me get out of the way. We'll turn YouTube off.